Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I made a somewhat controversial video this week, which I'm going to link down below and up here in the annotations for you guys, to where I discussed the fact that we have hard scientific data, quite a few studies now at this point, showing that people who use testosterone and other anabolics, that moderate doses of these drugs are able to induce more muscle gain in sedentary people who quit training, who are already training, than going in and following some of the best written programs we'll put on you during your noob gain phase per month. It blows them out of the water. The biggest question that I was asked in the comments down below was, well, what happens if people do train? What happens if they train hard? If you train harder on gear, won't you make a lot better gains? Well, we don't actually have any studies on this. All we have is the anecdote and observations in the real world, the results of thousands and thousands of people on steroid forums and other places who discuss their results. And I'm about to make a very controversial statement. The answer, yeah, maybe a little bit. And I'm going to break down why that is. And anyone who feels like they can disagree with me or they have evidence to the contrary, present your evidence down below. Present actual evidence. Don't assault me. Don't attack me personally. Provide evidence of some type to refute all the evidence we've observed in the world, because the other statements that people made in that video, I didn't gain as much muscle as people in these studies on drugs. You go put these sort of studies or a video like that on forums where people use gear regularly and admit their dose and everything they use, and they're shocked. They're like, I didn't gain anywhere near that much muscle training my ass off. Well, if you know anything about the gear world, you'll know that most guys are on very underdosed or low quality drugs. Most guys are using really crappy underground lab stuff. They're using a lot of fake gear that oftentimes only has 10 or 20% of what's in the bottle, even with some fake pharmaceutical stuff. The people in these studies were done in America using FDA grade approved pharmaceutical grade anabolics and testosterone. The real deal that has to be accurately dosed or the company could be fined millions of dollars. And when you do that, these guys magically gain more muscle than people on forums who use higher amounts and who train really hard, train 5 or 6 days a week. So why is that? Because the truth is, the quality of the drugs that people take and the amount of the drugs that they're getting into their body, once drugs come into the mix, actually have a larger impact than your actual training does, and whether you even train at all. Because if that wasn't true, all these guys who are training their asses off, who are on 1 gram or 2 grams or more, would be gaining as much muscle as the guys on 600 milligrams in these studies who are sedentary. But they aren't. Why is that? Because a lot of them are on a lot less gear than they think they're on. They're on much, much lower quality, lower dose drugs, and accordingly, even though they train, they can't gain as much muscle. And I would suggest to you the reason for that is because it's not a synergistic effect. Everyone who's reading this stuff is like, well, this should be a synergy. It should be like a 1 + 1 = 3. That, you know, if these drugs can put 18 pounds of muscle on you, then training should be able to put another 10 pounds on you. Other than people who've been training for more than 6 months don't gain 2 pounds of muscle per month. So you can't go from 18 plus 10 to 28, because you wouldn't gain 10 pounds of muscle from training at that point. These guys who have been training for 6 months, their noob gains are mostly done. Best case scenario, they're going to gain half a pound to a pound of muscle per month on a really good program. Why would you think training would add more than that in addition to the drugs? Because the drugs have already added 18 pounds of muscle to these people in the studies. They might gain 2 or 3 pounds of muscle if they have the training. I think it would be fair to say, if you take these studies and these guys who gained 18 pounds of muscle quitting training, who had already been lifting, if just being sedentary, if you were to add them on a training regimen, I think they would gain the same amount of muscle they would stimulate while training not on drugs. That would be the additive effect of the drugs. I don't think it's going to create a synergistic effect. They're going to gain another 2 or 3 pounds of muscle on top of it. On top of that 18, they might gain 20, 21, because that's about the amount of muscle they would gain from training at the point they're at on a good program. And I know that's a controversial statement, but all the available anecdote that we have suggests that, because you observe the gains of guys who go on Gear on forums and look at their training and stuff. They're not gaining as much muscle as guys do sedentary in studies because they're on less gear. And even when they get on very large amounts, they only on occasion hit the sort of results that you're seeing guys get in these studies. Why is that? Because they're advanced enough that their training is only adding a couple of pounds of muscle to their entire body every year. Everything else that they are gaining is from the drugs. and the quality and the amount of drugs that they're putting into their body is the biggest factor in how much they gain. Again, that's my theory on it. That's what I think's going on, and anyone who feels differently, look at all the anecdote, look at all the evidence out there, present your case and prove me wrong. I think you're going to have a hard time refuting that logic with anything that you can observe, even an anecdote in various people. Alright guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. If you guys enjoyed this video, please remember to click like down below. If you do so, thank you so much. So I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.